Hello, hello, and welcome to the Mindset Bloomcast with Mallory. I'm your host, Mallory McGary. I'm the founder and CEO of Beautifully Blooming. You can find me at beautifullyblooming.com or email me at mallory@beautifullyblooming.com. You are listening to the WGSN-DB Going Solo Network Radio, TV, and podcast, the number one internet talk network. Welcome to today's episode. I am so glad that we are here today. I have something that is kind of juicy and something that flows along with the things that we have been talking about so far in the past couple of episodes, especially with it being schools getting back in session. Things are changing, seasons are changing, life routines are changing. And so something that really has sat with me over the last little bit as I've prepped for this episode is that there's always things that keep coming up in seasons of change. Right now is a season of change. There's change for scheduling. Maybe there's change around different activities your kids are doing. Maybe there's change around your job. Just change in general, right? Most people don't love change and what it does, because what does change do? It pushes us out of our comfort zone. It pushes us into a growth space that is uncomfortable, that is the point of feeling like I'm not ready to take this path. So we kind of step back a little bit and let things kind of go along. And we don't like to be in that uncomfortable space. Our mind has a feeling of protecting us. And we've talked about this in past episodes, but quick recap is that our mind is like a fence, is like a little house, and there's a little fence line of things that are kind of our boundaries of where everything within that fence line are things that we know how to predict, that we can react to, we know how to react to, we know how to work within those confines. And every time we get a little bit more adventurous or daring or get pushed into those uncomfortable zones and take that for what it is, we start to expand those boundaries because we know our fence line will start to expand because we know that we have the ability to now react and to process things in a farther space. And so each time that we take that step into the uncomfortable, into those growing spaces, that it will be the pinnacle of moving that fence line, whether it's however you see that in your mind going, but you are widening your fence line. You are widening your, not only the things that you react to, but you're widening skills, you're widening thought processes, you're widening your ability to handle more things that are coming at you from a different space. And each time you step into this uncomfortable space, you're stepping into change, you're stepping into a growth moment. And sometimes more willingly than others, I think we all step into those change moments, but we step into those and we step into those confidently, the more and more we get pushed into those uncomfortable situations and that change. But knowing also that some change is willing, some change is change that we're taking on ourselves. Maybe you're taking on maybe you want to go back to school and you're learning something, you're learning whole new programming. Maybe it is something that you're trying to do for your kids that you want them to experience. So you're experiencing it with them. So you're learning something new that way. Maybe it's a personal development. Maybe you're picking up a new habit, whatever that looks like. But you're stepping into those challenges willingly. You're stepping into that change. You're saying, I am looking for change. I am ready to take this step into whatever that looks like, as whatever change is to you. That space, that change, you're willing to make that, whatever sacrifice, if there is any, whatever learning curves there are there, you're willing to take those in. You're stepping into that saying, I'm ready for change and this is what I want to change. So you're willingly stepping into those. They're still uncomfortable, but they're easier to handle because you are willingly stepping into those. You chose that change. And so you're stepping into that confidently saying, I know it's going to be uncomfortable. I'm going to learn a lot and I'm going to grow a lot. I may have some learning lessons along the way, but I'm willingly stepping into this space because I am looking for X results. And then on the other hand, you have the unanticipated change is what I'm going to call it. Change that you yourself are not ready for, you're not prepped for, Maybe you haven't thought about it. It just kind of hits you at a moment that you unseen, you feel kind of blindsided by it. Maybe it's your kids wanting to switch an extracurricular activity. Maybe it's something in your job. You've been given different roles and responsibilities for what that looks like. Maybe it's stepping into just a different community aspect of things. And those are the things that we tend to gravitate toward in a way that we're searching for that. Our minds are searching for that subconsciously, but consciously and physically, we're not fully prepared for that. So we become a lot more resistant. We become like very stagnant in what we do because we know that if we start taking action, we're going to end up in this space of super uncomfortableness that we weren't really searching for, or that just kind of got thrust upon us. And we don't want to go to that space. We're not prepared to go to that space. We don't feel like we have the tools to go into that space. And moving forward, you have all of these things that are just keeping you, holding you back and saying, that is not what I want to do. And when you try and side skirt, at least this is my own experience, but when I have tried to side skirt those changes that I've been thrust into, that it just never really works out. I always get flooded back right to the place that I was thrust into the first time when I should have just taken that path. I've done a lot more work around trying to side skirt this issue. And I end up finding that I am more at a loss because I've spent so much time side skirting it rather than just taking it head on. So with that in mind, with those changes in mind, we're going to talk today about our limiting beliefs. And this is something not only as a mom that I'm trying to teach my kids, as a business owner, as a coach that I'm trying to teach my clients, but also as a business owner that I still have some. I'm not exempt, along with every other entrepreneur that I know. I'm not exempt from these feelings of inadequacy or imposter syndrome, or just sometimes not fully believing in myself or my products or what I have to offer, that somebody is doing something better than me and I'm never going to reach that level, whatever that looks like. Those are the things that are holding us back. We're holding on to us. Those are our limiting beliefs, the negative thoughts that we are saying to ourselves, the things that swirl around in our mind and we're fully getting into, and we hold on to them. We kind of take some of those negative thoughts and we just grab onto them and say, yeah, that's true. That is true in my life. There's been nothing that has proven those thoughts to be true, but you hold on to them because your boundary and your fence line says, if I disagree with this thought or this process, I don't know how to react. I don't know the next steps beyond that. And I don't know how to handle that. So I'm just going to gravitate and say yes, because I know how to react in the boundaries, in those confines of this is true. This statement is true because I know how to react in these confines. So something to really think about, listen to yourself. Your homework, one of your homework assignments for this episode is listening to the thoughts that you tell yourself. And I know this is a little bit hard homework because you have constant thoughts going all the time. But when you pick up on one and you feel like, oh yeah, that's true in your mind, write it down and really dissect it and ask yourself, why is this true? What has proven that this is true? And 99.9% of the time, you're going to find something that it's not true or that it's unprovable. And even if there's something that is proven in your mind, but it happened so long ago in the past, you're not that person anymore. You know what that looks like. So I'm going to give an example of this, of an anecdote of my own life, of that when I was in high school, I participated in the Junior Miss program. It's the Miss America program for high school students, high school seniors, to get scholarships for college. And so I participated because I wanted to get scholarships for college. And I went through that whole experience, and it was a great experience. I would do it again in a heartbeat, knowing what I know now and where it got me. I'd totally do it all over again. But in that moment, it was a great experience. I was experiencing something new. It was a little uncomfortable because there were a lot of things that I hadn't experienced before. I've never been on a stage solo answering questions in a formal dress. I've never been into doing like fitness routines. And so there were things that were uncomfortable, but I looked at it and took it as the change of, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to learn and grow. And I remember the night that it came, and I was so thrilled, and I felt like I was on cloud nine. I felt more like I was the stellar star rather than the miscongeniality feeling that really would have reacted in my reality. That's kind of what I felt like. I didn't really know anything about what I was doing. I didn't know how that presence would stand on stage, and I didn't know. I just didn't know all of these things, and you don't know what you don't know. So I was fully confident that I was going to make like at least the top five, and going into it, it was going to be great. It was going to be awesome. And I went through the whole night, and I remember getting to the evening gown slash interview questions, and I thought I was like the belle of the ball. I felt like I was Belle gliding down the grand staircase, looking into the beast's face. Right, I felt like I was just gliding in this beautiful dress, and nothing could stop me. Answered the questions great. I don't even remember what they were, and it felt great. Moved on. Went to the end of the night. Spoiler alert: I didn't win. I didn't even make top five, but I still feel really great about my experience. I felt like I was a superstar and looked so awesome, and that it was just minor fractions. I don't even know points. I don't know any of that. So I don't know where it landed or whatnot, but in my brain still to this day, I'm like, I was so close. I was so great. But when I fast forward a couple of weeks and going through getting the video, the recap video disc back in the mail, I ran inside and I popped it in my DVD player because I wanted to see really what reality was. I had finally come down from that cloud nine, those feelings of like, I'm a beauty queen, I'm so great. And what I watched unfold on the screen was great. It was fun. It was awesome. I did better than I thought I did in reality. Like I did a great job in my head. I did awesome, and then in reality, it was still good. But when I like reflected on the weeks that I saw, it was like, oh, that wasn't great. So I did better than I really had started to downplay in my mind. And then it gets to this evening gown part, and it's one of my favorite stories to tell. I laugh about it. I think it's funny. I think it's awesome. It tells a lot about my personality. But I get to this moment waiting to think. I know I'm coming out from behind the curtain, and I look and I just know I'm glowing. I'm going to be gliding as if I was on floating from cloud to cloud. And I come out and I start walking, and my shoulders are hunched over. I'm a little bit like hunched into what it looks like. I am looking a little uncomfortable in this moment. It is the first time I've worn high heels, and like really worn high heels and I practiced in them, but like really worn high heels. It just was I looked like I was uncomfortable. And that moment right there haven't I mean, I laugh about it still, like throughout the years. I laughed about it a lot, but as I've reflected on this limiting belief episode, that story came to my mind of saying, in my head, I have the ability to do all of these things. And I know that. Just like you have the ability to do all of these amazing things. But when I actually saw it play out in real life, it was so far beyond what I had imagined and what I had in my brain. to what was really playing out in front of me. And when I looked at that experience, I said to myself, I think I've allowed that part of that to stand in my way from the things that were important that I could have done, because somewhere in my mind after that experience, I got into the mindset of, well, you can never ever wear high heels again. You are not beautiful enough to be a pageant queen, if you will. You aren't good enough to, you have no talent. You don't know how to answer interview questions. Just different things along that line of just, these things are on our way into what that looks like, what that moves, and how that goes. And so we're going to come back on this episode after the commercials and talk about how this story unfolds into your limiting beliefs and what that looks like. So thank you for being here for this first half. I look forward to seeing you in the second half. You are listening to the Mindset Bloomcast with Mallory. I am your host, Mallory McGary. I am the founder and CEO of Beautifully Blooming. You can find me at beautifullyblooming.com or email me at mallory@beautifullyblooming.com. You are listening to the WGSN-DB Going Solo Network Radio, TV, and podcast, the #1 internet talk network. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Mindset Bloomcast with Mallory. I'm your host, Mallory McGary. I'm the founder and CEO of Beautifully Blooming. You can find me at beautifullyblooming.com or email me at mallory@beautifullyblooming.com. You are listening to the WGSN-DB Going Solo Network Radio, TV, and podcast, the #1 internet talk network. Welcome back to this episode about our limiting beliefs. So we just ran through what change looks like, that there's willing change where we walk into that, there's change you get thrust into, and then how to take what those limiting beliefs come from, where they stem from, and different experiences in our lives. So we're jumping back into this experience of mine of being a part of the Junior Miss program and watching what played out in reality and watching what played out in my head at the same time, and where I picked up some of those limiting beliefs that still creep up occasionally here and there as a business owner, and where it comes from, and knowing that there are times that all of us as business owners, the women I am mentored by, the women I teach, and my clients, all of that things, we all have these things come up that are our imposter syndrome. We feel like we're not good enough. We feel like we are trying too hard to be someone else. People aren't going to purchase from us or buy from us or want to be in our space, in our circle, because we're not good enough. Which is very wholesome throughout all areas of life as a woman, especially as a mom. You go through imposter syndrome as in your job, in motherhood, in those feelings of, I'm not a good mom, I'm not doing A, B, and C with my kids, I'm not doing what so-and-so's doing, I'm not doing what so-and-so's doing, so my kids are going to be on maybe a slower track rather than a fast track, where I'm not teaching my kids the right things. So the whole gamut of things pops into our brain, and all of a sudden it paralyzes us. It says, you're not good enough. So it paralyzes you. It paralyzes you in the fact of, I'm not going to be able to do this because I don't have maybe the tools and talents, when really you actually do, but somewhere along the lines, experience otherwise has told you that you don't have those tools, and that your boundaries of comfortableness say that you don't know how to handle that, because it's change that maybe you're not ready for, a change that feels really sticky to you, not something that is exciting and you're wanting to do, that it feels like a huge weight just got put on your shoulders to try and change that. So you try and skirt around it a little bit longer or a little bit more, or just ignore it altogether. And what ends up happening when you do those sorts of things is it actually keeps you playing small. It keeps you hidden in this confines of your safety space or your safe net of your mind that says, I can only do these things because I'm only good at these things. When in reality, you're good at a lot of things. Maybe you haven't explored them in the way that you're meant to, or the way that it would cultivate that or show you that light bulb and say, look, I'm good at this too. But it keeps you from testing those out because you have those limiting beliefs of maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe it's I can't ever earn X dollars, or I'm never going to lose X pounds. I'm never going to lose the baby weight. For me, in that case, that would be something that a limiting belief of mine. So why would I keep trying? Why would I keep working out? Why would I keep taking the supplements? Why would I keep moving forward in that space? Because it's never going to happen. Those things are never going to happen for me. Or if I am scrolling through Instagram, just like we all do, that I'm never going to have the house like so and so, or I'm never going to have the job like so and so, or I'm never going to be the mom like so and so. Comparison is one of those hidden limiting beliefs of where you're at in holding yourself up and saying, I'm not as good as so and so. But remember, something I always emphasize on this show is that Instagram is a snapshot of a moment. It is a solid moment in time. It is not the beginning and the end of that story. It is a snapshot in that story. It is a quick dab into that picture, into that frame of their life, in their movie life, right? That it's just that quick frame that you get to see as you're like scrolling the channels to find the show that you want to watch. It's just that quick loop, loop, loop that you get to see. And so when you're comparing yourself, when you're allowing those limiting beliefs to step into your space, what happens? You start actually turning inward into yourself. And instead of doing things that you were good at, like that you're always good at and that you do all the time, you start to turn away from those things. You start to say, I'm not good at this. So that means I'm not good at this. I'm not good at that. I'm not good at, and trickle, just domino effects down the line, that you're not good at one thing, you're not good at another thing. And you start to turn inward and kind of inwardly implode a little bit until you have that moment or realization of like, what am I thinking? Where is this coming from? And you kind of snap back into what your reality is. But when you take those limiting beliefs, you keep imploding in on yourself. And for someone that is a business owner as well, that it takes a little bit different of those skill sets that you have. And it's easier at times to implode on those things that are those limiting beliefs, because you're trying to be in this space with a lot of other people who feel like they are experts, more farther along than you. And that's not necessarily the case in what it looks like. They're not further along than you. They may be, but they may be in the same spot as you. You just don't know in what that looks like. And so keeping on with that same track pattern. Sorry, I'm getting little guy dressed as we're doing this. That your limiting beliefs tend to dictate where your fence boundaries sit in your mind, of what you feel like you're capable of and what you feel like you're not capable of in those moments, and moving forward into those and how they work. So take account of those thoughts that you're holding on to, saying, I'm not this, or I can't do that, and I'm not good enough for this. Take into account of when you're thinking them, why you're thinking them, what triggers those thoughts, because if you can start to identify them, when situations like that come back up, you're not going to hold on to them as long, and you're going to be able to move through those faster and not implode as much. And we're going to do a part 2 about limiting beliefs, because I feel like it is such, right now in the season of harvest, in the season of change, in the season of growth, and how you want to take on your life right now as things are changing, things are moving, things are swirling, that things you're letting go of, things you're trying to pick up, whatever that is in your space. That limiting beliefs is going to keep you in a spot of either you're going to go for that and you're going to go for your dreams, or you're going to still say, I wish, or I dream of, or being afraid to dream that big because you in your brain, you think that's never going to happen. So why am I going to dream that big? So things like that, those limiting beliefs, those limiting things that are keeping you in these confines of your space. Yes, they're safe. Yes, they're comfortable, but being outside of that and learning and expanding those boundaries, those confines, you find that there's a lot more freedom outside of those. You're not keeping yourself in a space that is allowing you to stay small. So we're going to do a part 2 on this, that it is exactly what we're going to dive into a few more of the beliefs that come up in our minds in different ways. But if you are finding yourself right now feeling like you're holding yourself back from anything, regardless of what it is, especially as an entrepreneur or a business owner, take my free quiz. It is what is holding you back from making consistent 5 figures a month. And regardless of where you're at in your space, maybe you're a starting entrepreneur, maybe you've thought about it but haven't like quite caught on to the idea or what that looks like. Start honing in on what those limiting beliefs are. The link is in the show notes, in the bio. You can find it on beautifully-blooming.com as well. Please, please take that quiz. Start stepping into these limiting beliefs. It'll kick off 2024 in an amazing way, but it will end 2023 in such a strong way by starting to develop what these are. So we will do a part 2. If you have questions, please email them in at Mallory@beautifully-blooming.com. I look forward to hearing from you. Have a wonderful week, and thank you for being here. You are listening to the Mindset Bloomcast with Mallory. I am your host, Mallory McGary. I am the founder and CEO of Beautifully Blooming. You can find me at beautifullyblooming.com or email me at Mallory@beautifullyblooming.com. You are listening to the WGSN-DB Going Solo Network radio, TV, and podcast, the #1 internet talk network. And we'll see you soon.